Hi, this is Edmund Bradford, and in this video I'm going to help you get started with the Marketing2Win simulation. So there's a login ID up there. Just tap in the password here, and it's important to hit the OK button. Don't hit the return button on your keyboard, but hit the OK button there. That will pull up some terms and conditions. So you simply need to just scroll down right to the bottom there, accept those, hit continue, and then that will take you into the home screen. And so in this simulation, if you don't already know, we have 5 different supermarkets all competing in the UK food and drink market. And as you can see right at the top of the screen, I'm logged in as a big store. And you can also see that we're starting the game at period 2. In fact, it's the start of period 2, and these periods are 6 months long. So just think about it as being today being the 1st of July. We're just about to start the second 6 months of the year, and we can see all the trading results. Those are the sales, market share, profit results for the first 6 months of the year. That's period 1. That's from January to June. We can see that in the performance area here. So we can see the trading results for the first 6 months, but we've just started, we've just joined the company actually in the start of the second 6 months. So our first objective really is to have a decent second 6 months, a decent second half of the year, and try and bring in some improved sales, profits and market share at the end of the year. So one of the first things that you might want to do is to find out a little bit more about your company and perhaps a little bit more about the competition as well. So to do that, you go to this Market Players button here, click on that. Okay, that brings up a sub-menu, and you can see some interesting information about yourself, but in particular you've got a website that you can look at here. So I'm logged in as a big store, so I can take a look at my big store website, find out a little bit more about my company, and of course if I wanted to, just by returning to the game, I can also look at the websites of our competitors and actually start doing some initial competitor analysis. So that will help you get to know your company and help you get to know your competitors a little bit as well. The other key document that you want to spend a bit of time on here is the marketing plan. And when you click on that button, it brings up your marketing plan. And this document, which is in Excel, so we've done that so that you can play around with it. You can edit it, of course, and most importantly, at the end of the game, you can actually walk away with it and use it if ever you need to write a marketing plan in the future. Now, the great thing about this marketing plan is it's heavily linked into a very successful book called Marketing Plans, How to Prepare Them, How to Use Them, written by my friend and colleague, Professor Malcolm MacDonald. That book has sold over 500,000 copies worldwide and been translated into many, many different languages. So it really is the Bible of how to write a decent marketing plan. We've used that book and turned it into an Excel template so that you can apply the thinking in that book quite easily. And this plan is really important because it tells you a lot about what the previous team, the previous marketing team, who of course have been sacked and you and your team have been brought in to replace them, but it tells you what the previous team were trying to do in this marketplace. So in your early days working in strategic marketing for your company in this game, you need to try and get some understanding of what the previous situation was, what the previous strategy was, and your task really in this first decision round is just to carry on implementing the strategy that you've inherited. And this is quite a comprehensive document. There are many different pages to it which you can reach by clicking on the tabs down the bottom or clicking on some of the links here. So it really tells you quite a lot about the marketplace, your situation, and what the strategy was. So do take your time to read through that. There is even some little actions towards the end there which help you to get started in an effective way. So those are your first two tasks, to look at your website and your competitors' websites and to download and look through your marketing plan. The next thing to do is to then maybe look at these research reports. They're there if you need to use them. We have 3 research reports set up in this game, and you can buy those research reports if you need to. If you want to just buy any of those reports, you can first of all click on that plus button, and it gives you a synopsis of that report, so you can read the headlines of it before buying it if you choose to buy it. Then if you want to buy it, you just click yes, I'll have that, then click buy selected report, and then once you've done that, you can then go back at the top here and you'll have a new option just below this. It says reports already purchased. So those reports are there to be used if you want to use them. And then if I go back to the home screen where we were, the other button on here, and quite a big area, is the performance button, and if you click on that one, that then pulls up a complete dashboard of how you're performing in this marketplace. So here, for example, at the top of this screen, we can see that you're selling 4 different product lines to this marketplace, and in fact we've divided the consumers of this market into 4 different age categories. So in fact you have 4 different product lines or product categories, and we have 4 different consumer sectors here. Note the language that I'm using in terms of products and sectors, because you'll see down here we get product totals and sector totals. So a product total will be a complete vertical total, and a sector total will be a complete horizontal total. And in fact, therefore, we have these 16 different boxes. And for those of you that are particularly bright, you will realize that these actually are 16 different segments. And there is your first big question in terms of your strategy, which is, where shall we compete in this marketplace? There are currently 16 different segments here, and you need to think about where shall we compete in this particular marketplace. Now the numbers represent your sales. So with Big Store, for example, Big Store sold £9 million worth of baby food in the past 6 months. That's kind of in period 1, January to June period. So certainly you can look at your sales to help you think about which are your most important segments. That will just be one part of the thinking process, by the way. And you can click on any of these different segments to find out more about it. So at the moment we're actually in that top left-hand baby food segment. If you wanted to look at the data from another segment, you just click on whichever segment you're interested in. So in this particular segment, you can see it here, the baby and toddler fresh food segment. Although we've sold £9 million worth of baby food in the past 6 months, actually it's £100 million opportunity. It's a £100 million market. Therefore, you can see from the pie chart down here, if I just scroll it up a little bit, that our market share actually in this segment is 9%. And in fact, we're kind of in the middle here. We've got 2 competitors with a bigger market share than us, and 2 competitors with a smaller market share. So a big decision for us as a team is, do we want to take on the big boys and girls, or are we happy to let our market share shrink a little bit? Now there are some other KPIs on this list. So for example, we can see that the segment here is growing at 5% per period, or about 10% per annum, so it's growing quite nicely. We can also see some cost items down here as well, and if we add the cost items together and take them away from our sales, we can see our profits in this segment, and if we put our sales over our profits, we can even see our return on sales as well. So some useful KPIs there to help you think about whether this segment is going to be really important to you. And the thing I skipped over here is this ranking of 5. Now this ranking of 5 is really quite important, and it relates back to the value proposition chart down here. A value proposition is really important in terms of marketing strategy. And the value proposition really says, what do customers, or consumers in this case, think of our value proposition, in this case as a company. So down here, for example, you can see their key needs, or what we call in the simulation key buying factors. And so consumers in this case, they care about the price that we charge for all our goods and services, a brand, are we strong brand or not, whether we have a good amount of choice on the shelves, whether we have a good green image. So for example, there's horse meat free products, we have good supply chains, good suppliers, etc., and whether we're convenient. So do we have to travel as a customer? Do I have to travel to some out-of-town supermarket, or is it actually just around the corner? Now, unfortunately for Big Store, is that on these key buying factors, we're only scored 0.3. And this score actually will go up to 5.0. So we're scored just 0.3 out of 5 on each of these key buying factors. So pretty poor score, hence our low ranking. Now the good news for Big Store is that we've fixed it in the game so that all the other competitors also have the same poor flat value proposition. So they are also ranked number 5 as well. So we're all joint 5 at the start of the game. And that then raises your second big question, which is how are we going to win this segment, particularly if this is an important segment for us. Are we going to have the best prices? Are we going to have the best brand, the best choice, the best green image, or the most convenient store? And your answer to that, of course, it depends upon your diagnostic of the data in the game, your analysis across all the data that's within the simulation. And in particular, you need to think about not only what are consumers looking for, but also what your competitors are likely to do as well, because at the end of the day, you're looking for a differentiated value proposition that provides superior value for consumers. So that's a key area there, the value proposition. The other thing that we could look at in this area are the totals areas, the totals tabs. So we have 4 different totals tabs along here. They give the same set of data but different cuts. So when I press on the Market Totals tab, and this brings up key performance indicators across the whole market. So for example, we can see our total costs, market share, sales, profit, and return on sales across the whole marketplace. And again, we've gamed it so that each of the 5 competitors has approximately the same starting position. So there's no particular advantage to any team at the start of the simulation. You can also see some other graphical results down here. If you click on any of these radar buttons, as the game evolves and more periods pop up, you'll be able to see your trend line on these key metrics. This market total screen, by the way, is important because when you log back in after we've closed a decision round, this will be one of the first screens that you want to look at. You just click on the performance button to get here, and this will tell you immediately how strong your profits are compared to the competition, and therefore whether you're winning the game or not. There's also a couple of value maps down here as well, and they also give you a useful view of your performance in terms of value. Then there are 2 other tabs here. There's a BCG matrix here on the BCG tab. I won't show you that because it provides commercially sensitive information for Big Store, but that gives you a good portfolio view of your segments. And there's another tab here which is called the DPM, which stands for Directional Policy Matrix. That's another very, very useful strategic tool, portfolio tool, to help you think about which are your best segments to target. And that is really the whole performance area. So really what you want to do in this whole area is take a careful and considered look at your whole situation, review your situation, and from all that thinking, from all that analysis, from all the data that you've got there, really just do a very good SWOT. Think about where are we strong, where are we weak, where are the opportunities, and where are the threats. And from that, and it's not complete when you've just done those 4 items, then you need to think about what are the key challenges that we are facing. And as Einstein said, if he had just an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 55 minutes defining it and understanding the problem, and then he only needs to spend 5 minutes on the answer itself. So borrow a bit of brilliance from science, really diagnose the correct problems before you leap into thinking about your strategy. And the clearer you are about what your problems are, and the more accurate you are about defining them correctly, the more obvious and the more accurate your strategy will be. So use all the data in this simulation to really produce a fantastic SWOT, and use that SWOT analysis to really set the examination questions that your strategy then needs to answer. Now there's more help on this whole performance area, both in a video on performance, and also I have a video also on the target DPM matrix if you want to look at that as well. So after reviewing your performance, you then need to have a really good discussion in your team about the strategy, okay, and what the strategy should be. You need to think about particularly, where are we going to compete in this marketplace? How are we going to win? How are we going to beat the competition in those chosen segments? Then if you have a bit of free time, I would definitely encourage you to update the marketing plan. That's a significant plan that will keep the whole team coordinated on the strategy. And then the final step in this little 4-step sequence, which you'll do every decision round, the final step then is to implement the plan, and that's through making the right set of decisions. So we'll take a look at that now, and then to do that we simply go to the decisions area by pressing the decisions button here, and that will bring up the decisions data. There it is. Okay, so we can see, for example, that we have 16 different segments down here. And you can see here that £250,000 was spent in each of those segments. So that's the marketing budget that was spent in each of those segments in period 1, combining up to a total of £4 million. Now that was what was spent in the previous period by the previous team, so you can't do anything about that. That previous period 1, is now finished. But all that spend pattern has rolled forward into the current period, which is period 2. And so this is where you can adjust your investment, adjust your expenditure to make your strategy work for you. Now before we get into the individual spend items, just have a look down this bottom area here. You can see that there's a lot of spent in period, allowed in period, etc., etc. This is down to your budgets, and in particular, of course, well, you have a budget, of course, like any business department. You have a budget. Your budget for the whole year is this figure here. That's for period 1 and period 2. So in this case, we can see that the spend that's allowed in the year for Big Store is £8.8 million, but actually they have already spent £4 million in period 1. They're planning on spending another £4 million in period 2 if we don't make any changes. That gives us £8 million in total, which of course is this figure here. And then that also shows, therefore, that we have £867,000 left to spend in the whole year. So you can see these figures all fit together, and the important figure to look at is this bottom figure here. Now the good news for all the teams is that you all have a significant budget here that you can invest in any segments that you're interested in. And the other thing to bear in mind is this is to make sure that this stays in positive territory. Do not let this go into negative territory. If this is negative, it means that you're spending more at the end of the year than what you've been allowed. And if you try to do that, then seriously bad things will happen to you when we close the period. So make sure that's in positive territory. You have a decision to make, which is how much of that budget do we spend and how much do we not spend. The bit you do not spend will end up going into profit. So if you need a little bit of extra boost to your profit, you can decide if you want to not spend all your budget. And the finance officer will come over and give you a big handshake and say thank you very much, because that's a windfall profit that he wasn't expecting. So keep an eye on that one there. And the other thing you need to think about is the budget limit that you have for the first half of the year. Now, you're starting this game at the second half of the year, so this particular issue will only affect you when you start period 3. But you have an annual budget for the whole year, and effectively what we do is we chop that budget in half and give you an allowance for the first half of the year and an equal allowance for the second half of the year. The second half of the year is taken care of in terms of the remaining budget for the whole year. But the first half of the year, you can, if you want to, go over your allowance, but we do set limits. So typically the limits are set at 75% of the annual budget. So no more than 75% of the annual budget can be spent in the first half of the year. But it'll be wise for you to check with your instructor to see if that typical limit applies in this particular game. If you want to be safe about it, then I would suggest you apply like a 60-40 rule, so that you spend no more than 60% of your annual budget in the first period, or the first half of the year, shall we say. That's going to be period 3 and period 5, with leaving you 40% in the second period. Or you can do it the other way around. Of course, you can underspend your budget if you wish, and whatever you don't spend in the first half of the year, that will be saved for the second half of the year. So if you apply a kind of a 60-40 or 40-60 rule, you should be okay, but do check with the instructor to be sure. Okay, so having understood a little bit about your budget limits, let's go and spend some money. So let's take this first segment that we've been looking at before, which is the baby food segment. Make sure you click on period 2, which is the current period, not on period 1, which is finished. So if I just click on period 2 now, that will open up the decision input screen. And here you can see it, and your money is spent by allocating it across different projects, and each of these projects actually affects your value proposition. So for example, we can see here that here's the £250,000 that have been spent, by the way, or planning to be spent in this particular segment, and at the moment that's planning to be spent equally across all 5 projects around our value proposition. So let's go ahead and make a decision. So first of all, let's look at this column here, importance. So importance relates to how important any particular project is to our success in this segment. So let's think that pricing, let's assume that pricing is the most important thing to get right for this baby food segment. So let's make that more important. We're going to give that double the importance it was before. Now that of course means, really what it means is that in real life that we get better resources, we get issues resolved more quickly, and it's just a more of a priority project within the company. Okay, so pricing is important. Give that an extra importance rating, and of course you can't make everything more important. If you make one thing more important, then something else has to be less important. So we're going to just downgrade the importance of the green image and convenience. Okay, so that returns to 100%. Let's look at the next thing. We've got people here. So these are people that are allocated to our projects. So we've got one person working on pricing of baby food products. Now we've got plenty of annual budget left. Okay, so we can spend an extra bit of money on them. They are £50,000 per annum each, so they're decent people. And if we buy one extra for a particular period, then it will cost us an extra £25,000 on the bottom line in this period, so half the 50k. Okay, and then we're also going to spend some extra budget on promotion. So I'm going to just double that as well and give that £50,000 that we're spending on promotion. Okay, so you can do this yourself. Do whatever numbers you want to put in there, whatever investment you want to make on the individual segments. Now, before I hit the save button, you'll note that our current performance, as we saw before, was about flatline 0.3. But even without saving those changes, our performance, our value proposition will move up slightly to 0.8 because we're spending some money on it anyway, in fact £250,000. But now we're going to be spending the extra £50,000 on top of that. We're going to be spending £300,000. I hit the save button now. Okay, and that will just do itself. Just give it a second or two to make the calculation, and you'll see that it now has a little bit of a spike of extra performance of 1.6. Now, the important thing to note here is that you don't get that 1.6 boost in your performance immediately. You get an improvement up to 0.6 in the current period, okay, period plus 0, so that's a current period, okay, but actually we're going to get an extra 1 point on top of that in the next period, period plus 1, okay, so in fact in this particular situation it's going to be period 3. So that 1 plus the 0.6 adds up to the 1.6 that we've got here. Okay, now the reason why we've got this lag in the effect is because we're hiring this extra person, and of course it will take time to find that person, to recruit that person, for that person to become really good at their job, and so therefore you won't see that increase in performance immediately. So therefore you have a little decision to make. How much of your money are you going to be spending on promotion, and how much of your money are you going to be spending on people? If you spend money on people, you have to be aware and be ready for a little bit of a lag. If you spend money on promotion, then you'll see your performance impacting immediately. And there's not a right way or a wrong way to do this. It really depends very much on your attitude towards risk. So if you see yourself as being a risky team that likes to take risks, then you might want to spend more money on promotion. If you see yourself as a team that is a bit more risk averse, then you might want to be having a more slow and steady strategy and spending more money on people. And of course your decision on how much focus to put on people versus how much focus to put on promotion also depends upon what you think your competitors are doing, because if you think everybody else are going to be risk averse, then maybe you should be a bit more risky. But if you think that everybody else is going to take lots of risks, then maybe you should be a little bit more risk averse. So entirely down to you. Now, of course, you can change your mind. So let's say we had a discussion in our team and we decided that actually that was wrong, our little approach to this particular segment. So I'm going to return the figures back to where they were. Okay, and I'm going to hit the save button again. Just give that a second to make the change. Okay, and we're back to where we were. So you can change your mind as often as you want to before the decision deadline, but really do not try to make decisions very, very close to the decision deadline. Who knows what might happen? Just get into this routine of, if you're making changes, use the save button here, okay, and use it on a fairly regular basis. Who knows, you might lose your own little local Wi-Fi connection, and if you've had a lot of decisions stored up and you haven't hit the save button, then you would have lost them. Okay, once you hit the save button, your decisions are safe and they're sitting on our server. So once you've done that segment, once you're happy with your decisions there, then you can go back to the other screen. I'm just going to hit return no save because I've already hit the save button anyway. That returns back to the previous screen, and then I can go to another segment and work on that one. Once I've worked on as many segments as I wish to, and made sure I've done that before the first deadline, then it's done. And then you can sit back and wait for Market2Win to close the decision round, and then pretty soon after we've closed that decision round, you can look at the results and see how you're performing, and then start that whole process again in the next decision round of reviewing your performance, discussing the strategy, which actually is now going to be 3 questions, which is: where shall we compete, how are we going to win, and when do you want to see the results? Okay, that's the third question now popped up. When do you want to see the results? Then you can update the plan based on your new strategy and then execute the plan in the decisions area. Now there's another video that looks at decisions specifically, which will give you further support in this area. There is, of course, lots of on-screen help as well. Just look for the little question marks here, click on the little question marks to pull up information about budgets, etc. So that's all there for you to use to help you get your heads around it all. And I hope this video has been useful for you, and good luck.